So last week's video was regarding a lady named Linda Morgan who was murdered by Henry Sandifer. I'm Dan Stover, a retired Chicago homicide detective. 33 years on the job, 22 of those in homicide. These are real cases told from my perspective. He strangled her to death. He put her in a blanket. He wrapped her in a blanket. He cinched it together with suspenders. His DNA was recovered from the suspenders, from her vaginal cavity, her anus, and her right hand, I believe it was. Well, this is like a part 2 to that. And in the end of that video, I said, do we have a serial killer on our hands? And yes, we did. Fortunately, he's doing time in the Illinois Department of Corrections now. It's Henry Sandifer. In this matter with Angela Kirkling, at this time, my partner and I were reviewing cold cases pretty much exclusively. We were like assigned to a cold case team within Area 2. And one of the files that we pulled out was this Angela Kirkling. We started looking at it. Is there anything we can do in the way of DNA based on the physical evidence recovered? And let's see what happens with this lady. She was strangled. She was found in a motel room on South 103rd Street. And she was naked except for wearing socks only. And the autopsy revealed she was strangled. So we utilized at that time what was called a DNA grant. So the federal government gave grant money to the city of Chicago to investigate the cold cases. So we noted 2 pieces of evidence: the victim's underwear, and it was a beer can or bottle that was recovered from the motel room. Early on the morning of January 17, 2000, Angela Kirkling checks in to this motel room with a male. And she's supposed to get out like about 5:20 that same day. Well, she didn't, and didn't check out. So an employee goes to the room to inspect. She opens the door and she finds a woman deceased, Angela Kirkling. She calls the police. Police respond. Detectives are assigned. Well, again, we're following up on this. This case happened in 2000. So once we did all the necessary paperwork to have the DNA worked up by the scientists, sometime later we received what we call a major profile hit. And who does it come back to, the major profile hit? Henry Sandifer, the same guy who killed Linda Morgan. So Henry, who's doing a 60-year bit in Illinois Department of Corrections, we locate which penitentiary he's at. We make the proper arrangements to do an interview with him. My partner and I go. Henry walks into the room. I say, hey, Henry, how you doing? You remember us? He says, yeah, you're the motherfuckers that locked me up. Until you did it to yourself, Henry. We didn't do it. You did it to yourself. But anyway, we go on to interview him, advise him of his rights, understands his rights, lay out photos of Angela Kirkling, just like we did with Linda Morgan case. Photographs of the scene. You ever been here? Do you know this lady? Nope. He does the same exact thing as he did in the Linda Morgan case. Denies ever seeing her. So once again, Henry, how do you explain your DNA in this room? In her panties? On the beer can or beer bottle? How do you explain that if you're saying you were never there? That's because you're lying. So after the interview is done, we leave, and then we contact the Cook County State's Attorney's Office Felony Review Unit. We explain to them the circumstances and that we're going to be requesting an arrest warrant to take custody of Henry from the Illinois Department of Corrections, take him to our office of Area 2, and continue the investigation. The arrest warrant is granted, and we end up at some point taking custody of Henry. We contact the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. He's in our custody at Area 2. They look at everything, all the evidence, the DNA numbers, the reports. They go through it, and they concluded that, yes, we will place the appropriate charges of first-degree murder against Henry. We take him with that to the Cook County Jail, release him to their custody, and then he's set to go to court from that point forward. So some of you may be saying, well, does this make him a serial killer? Well, yes, it does. The FBI says that a serial killer is the murder of two or more people over a period of time in a cooling period between the murders. So plenty of time. They're separate consecutive events, and are often driven by psychological motives such as power, thrill-seeking, or sexual gratification, rather than a single simultaneous event. Tell me what you think about that. Let me know. Is he a serial killer? Do you think there could be possibly more murders out there that were the same MO? This was basically the same MO that Henry did to Angela as he did to Linda Morgan. Strangulation. Here's another thing about Henry Sandifer. At the time, he was 58 years old. He'd been convicted of 12 felonies, including murder, burglary, attempted burglary, theft, armed robbery, which I've always said an armed robbery is a squeeze of a trigger away from a murder. When you put a gun in somebody's face and you have your finger on that trigger, it's the squeeze of that trigger before it becomes a murder. That's how serious an armed robbery is. He had convictions of possession of controlled substances, possession of a stolen motor vehicle. Let me ask you, is this a person you think should have been out on the streets? Maybe if he was not on the streets, these victims may have lived. Maybe there's another cold case out there somewhere where he just has been lucky so far not to have gotten caught. What's your thoughts on that? Should he have been out on the streets? Let me know. I'm curious to hear what y'all have to say. If you like my videos, please do me a favor. Can you subscribe to YouTube? That's at Big City Dan. The B, the C, and the D are uppercase. That's YouTube. Also, please follow me on Instagram. The handle for that is Crime Big City, all one word, lowercase. I appreciate it.